Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death. Well, we don't have to go any further, do we? Both of us, both us and Christ, are referred to in that death. So once again, in verse 4, we have a B and a C, and we will go further for the sake of completeness, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. Definitely talking about both of us in that verse. Verse 5, for if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall also be in the likeness of his resurrection. What is that one referring to? Both again, Nathan. Got it right again. College students are very smart. Knowing this that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. What have we got there? In the words crucified with him. Both again. Both again. Now let's look at verse 7. For he that is dead is freed from sin. What do you think about that one? It's not so easy to prove without going a little bit deeper. So we'll put a question mark beside that one. Just give it the benefit of a doubt. I'll tell you what that is when we get to that. Verse 8. Now if we be dead with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him. What have we got there? Both again. Look at verse 9. Knowing that Christ, being raised from the dead, dieth no more, death hath no more dominion over him. What's that? Christ, isn't it? It's only Christ, that one. And verse 10. For in that he died unto sin once, but in that he liveth unto God. Christ only again. Okay. Now, if we do our maths properly, I think we can safely calculate that the majority of those instances speak of the believer somehow dying with Christ. And so that should give us a clue to the meaning of verse 2 when it talks of having died to sin. Okay? Let's go back and we'll reread verse 2. Aloud together, please. Ready? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Having taken a look at the broader context as we did a little earlier and even throughout the day, I think that it's going to become obvious here that the next verse, verse 3, is actually explaining the sense in which we died. Look at verse 3 with me, please. You don't have to read it, just follow. Know ye not, he's answering his own question here. The question was, how shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? And then he goes on to say, know ye not, he answers that with another question. Know ye not that so many of us as were baptized into Jesus Christ were baptized into his death? What key word are you locking in on in that verse? Death. It's talking about us being baptized into his death. So this is something to do with the sense in which he was referring to us being dead to sin. And that's why he's raised it immediately in that context. And so it is saying that we were united with Christ's death at baptism. Now, baptism here stands for the time when we were saved. And we're going to look at the implications and the difficulties of that in the next message. But for now, I don't want you to be distracted about that. I know you theologians are thinking, what's he going to say? Don't worry about that, okay? I want you to just put that aside. We'll deal with that sticky one tomorrow. For now, it basically is talking about conversion at this point, okay? Now we know that Christ died for sin, and because of our conversion we are united with Him. Has to be that. We're united with Christ at the point when we believe and we are baptized into the body of Christ. The universal body of Christ. I'll say it. I'm an independent Baptist, but I'll say that. As a result, we are justified from all sin. Now, justification, of course, is the grand subject of those earlier chapters of the book of Romans. But chapter 6 is not dealing with justification. It is dealing with our spiritual growth, our sanctification. You see, on the cross, Christ not only dealt with our justification by His death for sin, but He dealt also with our sanctification through His death to sin. Okay, stay with me now. Having our spiritual growth and our victory over sin paramount in his mind in this chapter, the Apostle wants us to see a particular aspect of Christ's death. An aspect that is in fact the guarantee of our victory over bondage to sin in this life. Now this is where it's really at, folks, for our practical growth and victory over sin. And we've already seen that all the way down to verse 10, Paul has got us united with Christ's death. You see that? We just went through that whole exercise together. Verse 10 then tells us what kind of death it was that Christ died. Let's reread verse 10 with me, please, aloud. Ready? For in that He died unto sin once, but in that He liveth unto God. What kind of death was it? Somebody answer me. What kind of death was it? Somebody stick your hand up if you're going to whisper and tell me loudly and boldly. Yes. Sorry? Yes, it was a physical death, but I mean something in the text. What kind of death does it say in the text that He died? A death unto sin. Yes, was that you, Mrs. Trumbull? No. Kylie. Oh, it was good. She was right on the button. It was a death unto sin. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that Christ was ever a sinner? Can't mean that, can it? He never was a sinner. He was perfect. But what it does mean is that in His full identification with us as sinful people, He had to be born into the realm of Adam and to defeat the powers that rule in that realm. And with respect to death, Philippians chapter 2, verse 8 says this, death being the other ruling power, and being found in fashion as a man, He humbled Himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. And with respect to sin, the other ruling power, Hebrews 4:15 says, He was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. So He was under the power of sin, constantly tempted, yet did not give in. So when Christ was born of Mary, He entered Adam's realm, and He voluntarily placed Himself in subjection to the powers that operate in that realm. You think of that, coming from glory, voluntarily subjecting to that vile, constant, obnoxious stench it must have been. Those tyrannical co-regents, death and sin, and He subjected Himself to both of those for you and me. And Christ understood very well what it meant to be constantly dogged and tempted by the power of sin while He was here on the earth. But at the moment of death, He was released from So Christ's death was also a death to sin, which freed him from the constant irritation of that, the power of sin, which he had never known in eternity past. That was always at him, trying to drag him down like it had done everyone else in the realm of Adam. Could not do it to the God-man. Now we believe